live, it looks like, and Miguel Iturrate here for the CRP. I'm joined by Anthony Piatt, the boxing team, together here, and we are post-fight. Vasyl Lomachenko versus Anthony Crolla. We're calling this the Lomachenko Dismantles Crolla post-fight party because, I don't know, dismantle's a good word. What do you say?
I mean, I was thrilled by watching it. It was such an amazing it answered the questions that we put forward in the show, before the fight. Is his shoulder ready? Is he, if it is fixed and no longer hurting him, is he willing to throw that right hook and take some punches, throw some punches with it? And or would he coast on it and kind of beat him like he did like Pedraza? What he showed early on is that he can frustrate you with his footwork and his defense and his movement, and then just simple jabs with such timing that you really can't get anything started against him. So Crolla never really had a chance in this. For those of you that didn't see it, Lomachenko figures him out. By the third round, he's beaten Crolla with 15 seconds left, 12 seconds left. The ref steps in, and it looks like a stoppage, but Crolla had actually sat down on the rope, which is then a knockdown. So he got the standing 8 count and made it to the 4th round, which was interesting because that's the round that I was saying, look, if his shoulder's fixed, he should knock Crolla out in the 4th round, and he was able to do that. And as I said, I would stand behind this. If he's able to knock Crolla out in the 4th round, then he's pound for pound best in the world, in my opinion. That's what I'm going to stand behind. I think he really earned that title tonight. He's back. Is the weight difference between him and Terrence Crawford something that'll ever be overcome? Will the answer ever be settled? I think it's one of those things where if you ever beat Terrence Crawford, then you have to start talking about, is he one of the best ever at this point? I was really excited by this fight. And it's the right. Let's face it, it's the rotator cuff on the right hand. Is it fixed? Is it okay? Knocked him out in the 4th round with just a short, clean, crisp right with rotation of the hip and the foot. And that's it. Crolla goes down. It's over. What did you think of the fight, Miguel? I know you're a bit more skeptical of Loma than I am. What did you see in this fight? That you know what I mean?
It's hard to complain, right? I mean, the main thing is, if you didn't see it, what I saw at the very end in the sequence, and I look for the kind of sequence that, if a fighter is going to give you a little bit of insight as to what he's thinking, how he's doing things in his head, I like to grab that if I can, if it's there. And I think Loma gave us something there because if I saw correctly, and as you pointed out, end of round 3, he's swinging for the fences and looking to take him out. Crolla's not answering, so there is the possibility that the ref could have stepped in there. It did wind up being a standing 8 count. There was some confusion at the end of the round with like commissioners in the ring and getting emptied by there, and they never started the action again, even though the knockdown came or the stoppage by the ref came at about 12 seconds out. So they went back to the corner. If you look at it that way, Crolla had a best case scenario minute and a half to recover, right? So with the time, from the knockdown not getting hit, the last 10 seconds of the round and then the confusion and stuff like that. So he had a little bit of time. He came out, they touched gloves. So Lomachenko's okay with not getting the stoppage. He celebrated like it was stopped, though. So
yeah, it sure looked like it was stopped, and I understand perception and that it wasn't. I get it. It was fine.
From the opening little touch of gloves in the 4th, I said, uh-oh. Because I think Lomachenko had, in his head, had the win already in the 3rd, and it got taken away from him. And that's the kind of thing you don't want to leave any type of question marks on. So the thing repeats itself a little bit, and he gets Crolla on the ropes, and he starts to throw. And in this very, very final sequence, Crolla answers. He throws a few punches, and Lomachenko salutes him like, hey, there you are. Boom, here's the knockout. And that's what he did.
I like your spirit, kid.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what he did. It's like, oh, there you are. Okay, good. Boom. I can't do any more of this. I got something to do. But it literally looked like that. Like he saluted him first. He said, oh, there you're throwing punches. Okay, we're in this. Sorry. Boom. And then he finished it. And that's confidence. That's not arrogance. Not when it's executed that way in the ring and so with such subtleties and stuff like that. It's like with Roy Jones and somebody, because he's on that level of magic, right? But when Roy Jones used to get it together, it was a little bit of showmanship along with it. And Loma, he packages that showmanship with such efficiency. He's not wasting any motion because he can or because he's having a lot of fun anyway. He's still very efficient with his angles and doing a lot of what makes it look like that 2.0 version, where it's not, like trash talk or like putting your hands behind your back. Like Roy put his hands behind his back and knock a guy out from there. We saw that, Lomachenko looks to be that capable of it and looks to be that capable of it. He just plays it a little bit of a different thing. But I think we're seeing that level of art.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely fabulous. And you're right. There's such a confidence to what he does, and he wants to be the best. And I think that's what keeps driving him. He really wants to be not the best right now. He wants to be in the conversation, at least, for the best of all time. And he has a real drive to do that. So he is confident that he can achieve that. I think he's humble enough to know that he hasn't achieved it, but he's confident enough to know that he wants to and he can. And, as I say, I've often said this with him fighting right hand forward, and his footwork, his power, his speed, and his intelligence always reminded me of, like a Bruce Lee type thing for boxing. And that's what, Bruce had said when he's asked, are you good? He said, well, if I say I'm not, if I say I am, I'm bragging. And if I say I'm not, I'm lying. And that's with Lomachenko. He's not going to lie and say he's not one of the best. But he does it in such a way that you respect where he's coming from, and he's a good sport, and he respects the people he boxes. That's the thing about this guy. He's got a lot of drive and integrity. And part of that is he's not going to do a Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson situation. He's not going to go train somewhere and instead of training, do hookers and blow and get knocked out. This is not Lomachenko's plight. So because of that gives him a solidity that I think he can maybe build a legacy on this thing, even though he's 31 and may have 2 to 4 years left at peak. What can he do in those 2 to 4 years? If he walks right through Mikey Garcia and anyone else in the division and unifies yet a third division, does he go for a fourth? I mean, he admits he's more comfortable at 130 and that 135 is a stretch. So where does he meet a guy like Bud Crawford? I'm talking like, legacy, top of the, long-term, 50-year, amazing shit. How does he ever meet a Bud Crawford? If he doesn't do that, how does he become in your top 10 of all time? Can he do it?
There's a path, and it involves, I think, staying at 130. I don't think 140. I think Mikey Garcia is bigger than Loma, and I think he showed some of the bugaboos of going up to 147. I think the other problem, and I noticed that Lomachenko called out Garcia, and I think that's a smart move. I think Lomachenko does that very, very intelligently and very, very deliberately, because the bottom line is he knows Garcia is good, and I think he understands everything about the sport in terms of diet and things like that. And the bottom line is Garcia put himself through an extreme weight gain of about 10 pounds of something, of slow me down, basically, whatever you want to call it, muscle, because he didn't put on fat, right? But he slowed down a little bit. He put that on now. I'd love to get him at 135 the first time. Now he's got to shed all that he put on and put it on the right way in hopes of beating Spence and staying there. So now the next time he gets to 135 should be a little bit more of a chore for him. And if you can get him first, you may have a little bit of an advantage there.
Sure.
Garcia may know that. Garcia may want to get back to 135 in his own way, maybe defend the belt against a mandatory or two, and then from there. What I think Lomachenko's got some good firepower coming up to him from lower weight classes. You've got Gervonta Davis is the one that immediately comes to mind in terms of
right there.
Yeah, he may not be ready for Loma. They'll say that, even though Loma's got half the fights at this point. So when is this kid going to be ready? But Davis got a big. I mean, he's just got more punching power than anybody that Loma's faced. Loma's faced big punches before. You can't hit. The wind isn't going to knock him out. So.
Sure.
But that's a big fight, and there are other guys, coming up from lower weight classes, that I think you could stay in those weight classes, solidify yourself as a two, he had one in the lower weight classes, but you could go back and forth between 130 and 135, and solidify yourself as an all-time great in those weight classes. And I mean, with lightweight being your peak, that's what you are. You're a lightweight. At your max, welterweight. The Crawford fight is interesting stylistically, but I think Crawford's too big. I think Crawford's top end is 154. You know what I mean? Crawford may have one more weight class up, and that's not what they're going to say about Lomachenko. Lomachenko himself, he looks small today. He looks small today. When they showed it, and you see, we were talking at a pre-fight. They showed it on the pre-fight. They showed Crolla versus Linares, and Linares is bigger than Crolla. So Loma doesn't really care at lightweight. He's fine. If he took out Linares at lightweight, and Linares is a little bigger than Crolla, he's going to be fine. Maybe even fine at 140. But not again. There Regis Prograis. There's some big punching 140 pounders. Josh Taylor and stuff. Even 140 may be too much for him at that point. When you start counting the young guns at 140, I think he's wise to stay right at 135, dominate right there, and then let the legacy come to him. Everybody's going to want a gun for him. In terms of, if you're talking about super featherweights, Miguel Burchell would be an interesting fight. You got, if he's going to go back down from lightweight to super featherweight, could he meet Leo Santa Cruz?
That'd be an interesting fight.
They're all of a sudden now you're talking about legacy building fights. Their opponents in England. He could wind up fighting Luke Campbell. I'm not a big Luke Campbell fan. He's a gold medalist, but he's got a couple of losses. I don't think, he's no Anthony Joshua kind of thing. But the Brits are high on him. There are other guys there. Like I said, at 140. There's there's too much danger there. So I think 135, they're smart to cap themselves at that. Oscar Valdez, if I'm not mistaken, I think at some point Lomachenko mentioned Valdez in particular as a guy who he remembers from the amateur ranks and rates very, very highly. So I think that wouldn't prevent people from talking about Lomachenko as an all-time great if he defeats, that type of murderer's row in his weight classes. If not, he might make the mistake Garcia did, and he's already taken a loss. So I think he should be wary of that.
Yeah, and moving up for bigger weight classes can really cause issues, as it did with Garcia recently.
Yep. Did you see the rest of the card? What did you think of Surdo Ramirez at light heavyweight?
Yeah, that was he really took it to Carpensi. That was his first outing at 175 weight class. Interestingly enough, he stepped into the ring at 195. So he came in, but he says he wants to stay at 175 for a while, and I think he looks great there. I mean, I thought Ramirez was fabulous, powerful, quick, good defense, wasn't getting hit much. I guess about 30 seconds into the first round, he landed a body shot on Carpensi and either broke him then or cracked him and started the break. So Carpensi finally retired in the corner in I forget what round it was, fifth round maybe. He retired in the corner after really just not being able to handle the broken ribs, is what he told his cornerman. So Ramirez looked great. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, 195. I mean, if you dabble over a little bit into the world of MMA, that's actually not that unusual. So he's managing, we'll call it a modern dietary program to put 20 pounds back on. Bottom line is in boxing, cruiserweight is capped at 199, and he'll be fighting 215 pounders if he goes there. So he's smart to sit right where he is at 175, be huge, and that's fine. He's also talked about going back down to 168, so he'll be absolutely huge there. But I think he showed himself, to be talented here, and that his body is still going to keep him at an elite level. Like we're talking about Lomachenko, if he goes up in weight, there may be something that he'll just be facing bigger guys. That's not going to happen to Surdo Ramirez at 175. You'd be hard-pressed to find a guy with his stature right now.
That's right. Good night of boxing overall.
Overall, yep, definitely. Again, plus 7,000, plus 5,000, minus 7,000 rather, minus 5,000 odds for the favorites, Ramirez and Lomachenko. So what did you expect? Well, we definitely can expect a fun night of fights, and it was a good night of fights. Now, if I was on the East Coast, though, if I'm a New Yorker or something like that, it's past midnight before they gave me Lomachenko. That may be something ESPN wants to look at.
No, it's 1 o'clock now as we're wrapping this up, and we came on. They were still in the ring talking when we started this podcast because, we like to keep it fresh at Cage Rage and everything. So, we were talking as they were still doing some interviews. So we started this fresh up. And, 11 o'clock start time Eastern, which I'm in as well. So, I thought it was going to be earlier than that, at least with some of the it's really strange. And I don't mind the ESPN Plus format. I like it. But I hope they mix it up a little bit and keep some on regular ESPN. We would need to bring more fans into boxing is my point.
Yeah, and it looks to be like they're this could be happening with a lot of the streaming services. It's like maybe they're abusing not having a TV schedule, which becomes a real hard schedule, and you're actually getting more ads and more advertising and things, whereas you kind of would want to see less. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
but I guess they got to pay the bills, and that's what's going on. But these shows are extending themselves, and you're spending hours and hours to watch just a handful of fights, and on the longer shows like tomorrow. For example, with the UFC or with some of the longer British shows, you've got fights on, pay-per-view and then on ESPN Plus and then on ESPN chopped up, and throughout the entire day, you're probably looking at about a 6 or 8 hour show.
Yeah.
So hopefully they will tighten up the format, on the delivery and stuff, maybe make it earlier. But in terms of the quality, they signed quality guys in Lomachenko, and he showed it today. Surdo Ramirez as well.
Right.
Yeah, the top rank stable on display tonight at the Staples Center. I'm Miguel Iturrate. That's ASP, and we're signing off here for the Cage Rage podcast. This is our post-fight wrap on Lomachenko Crolla.